Ayo, wise intelligent, the poor righteous teacher himself, founder of the algorithm where we keep the culture on code. Welcome to another episode of Shut the Fuck Up, where we spend a few minutes debunking popular myths circulating in this culture and community that serve no other purpose but to pathologize black people. In this episode, we're going to be addressing what I like to call the white shadow. Why does white America consistently project blame for the country's problems onto the country's black and non-white populations? This subject sits at the intersection of psychology, history, and social identity theory. From a psychosocial and historical perspective, this phenomenon reflects several interlocking dynamics: projection, displacement, social identity threat, and what scholars like Du Bois and later Frantz Fanon described as the psychological wages of whiteness. But let's unpack this systematically. European and Euro-American societies have long centered this identity narrative of moral, cultural, and civilizational superiority. When confronted with overwhelming evidence of internal decay, corruption, violence, inequality, and exploitation, there's a collective narcissistic injury. The self-image, we are virtuous, rational, and civilized, clashes with the reality, systemic, moral, and social rot. Psychologically, this creates cognitive dissonance, which the psyche resolves not by self-examination, but by externalizing blame. Historically, that blame has been directed toward the racialized other, black people, immigrants, Muslims, and so on, as a way to preserve the illusion of innocence within the dominant group. Projection is a classical Freudian defense mechanism. What you can't tolerate in yourself is projected onto someone else. The violence of white men, for example, mass shootings, killing parishioners in churches, is projected onto the myth of the violent black male, with non-contextual arrest rates, fragmented and fabricated crime stats, etc. The sexual deviance of white clergy and elites is also projected onto racialized bodies. The hypersexual black man trope, like framing Diddy as the poster boy for sexual deviancy for mostly consensual adult activity, while white judges, politicians, and priests are sexually abusing children religiously. The criminality of white corporations, drug epidemics, wage theft, ecological destruction is all displaced onto narratives about black crime. This mechanism allows for psychological absolution. You need not face the terror of your own moral failure if you can locate evil elsewhere. W.E.B. Du Bois described how poor white laborers historically accepted economic exploitation in exchange for a psychological wage, the comfort of believing they were superior to black people. As neoliberal capitalism driven by white corporate elites replaces white labor with technology and cheap global labor, that psychological wage becomes all that remains. The rage and humiliation of economic displacement cannot safely be directed upward towards billionaires like Donald Trump or Elon Musk, for example, so as displaced laterally or downward towards groups already coded as inferior in the cultural imagination. This is what President Lyndon B. Johnson understood when he said, "If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you." The high rates of white-on-white violence, school shootings, domestic killings, mass suicides, drug overdoses can be read as manifestations of self-directed aggression. A civilization built on domination and denial ultimately internalizes its own violence. Psychologist Erich Fromm called this the necrophilic orientation of modern industrial man, the compulsion to control, mechanize, and destroy life, including one's own. When the same psyche that enslaved, colonized, and extracted turns those impulses inward with devastating results. Christianity, in its Western institutional form, often reinforced this split. Sin was confessed but not transformed. Thus, the pedophilic priest or the corporate exploiter can rationalize harm while maintaining a self-image of righteousness. Collective guilt, racial, moral, spiritual, is then cleansed through projection onto the wicked other. Historically, this underlies everything from witch hunts to lynchings to present-day racial scapegoating in media and politics. If we trace this psychologically, the modern Western ego was forged through colonization, a process of dehumanizing others to elevate the self. When colonialism turns inward, within Europe or white America, the colonizer's psyche begins to colonize itself. The social body reproduces domination internally, class hierarchy, gender violence, interracial hatred. Today, the black body remains the screen onto which white civilization projects its unresolved shadow, the repository of everything it denies about itself: irrationality, savagery, sensuality, and failure. The anger directed at black people, despite the internal crisis of white society, is a defense mechanism against existential shame and collapse. It serves to protect the fragile myth of white innocence and superiority, to prevent solidarity between poor whites and non-white people against capitalist exploitation, and provide a psychological outlet for anxiety about loss, decline, and self-destruction. As a historian might put it, this is not new. It's the afterlife of empire replaying itself psychologically through denial and projection. So the next time you hear somebody inserting logical fallacies, tactical stupidity, and unfactual, non-contextual misinformation about black crime rates and other bullshit and discussions about the 400-year ongoing crime in progress that is white global hegemony to deflect from the well-documented criminality of white folk, tell them to shut the fuck up. Please and thank you. Peace.